Right, okay, so I'm talking to you first about our A-level and PE here at South Bromsgrove. So we follow the OCR course specification. If you look on the screen now on our school website, you'll find that course information. You can look through OCR and you'll find that course content. The course itself supports those that have a practical ability, so there is a practical weighting towards it, so you can still pick a gained qualification by being practical at the same time, but it's split into 3 examination papers, and you'll sit those at the end of your 2-year course. The first paper we look at is anatomy and physiology, so your science-based stuff, as well as like our body biomechanics. We then start to look at skill acquisition and sports psychology, and then our last paper we look at is kind of like the history of sport and like contemporary studies. Now what you can see, and you can see it on the screen at the same time, is the split in regards to how important they are. So we look at 30, 20, 20, and our final percentage is made up of our practical-based ability. Now, in order to support that, what we do ask is that students start our course with a practical sport already, and they're taking part outside of school from a competitive scenario. That's really important. But otherwise, you can kind of start the course from a background of a negative perspective. That's what we don't want to start happening. Yes, there was a high amount of science early on. So myself and other staff teach it early on, and we look at kind of making sure we gain the fundamentals behind the anatomy and physiology before we start progressing further with our course. So the start of our course can be quite challenging at times. As we move on though, we tend to find that the course content itself kind of evens itself out. So we start looking at a bit of wider options, so sports psychology, some of our skill-based, as well as looking at kind of the history of where sport has come from. In regards to the example of course content, so we look at arousal theories, we start to look at some of how those affect sport and situations. We also do different areas in looking at the impact of gender in sport, as well as kind of drug taking and doping, as well as the impact on like global based sports events. If you're someone that has a natural ability or someone that takes a keen interest in sport, then actually it's a first kind of avenue into a sports based career. We recognise that a lot of people here at South want a sporting career. They've picked up a keen interest. That's really, really good to hear. So your sporting careers coming out of A-level PE can be quite wide, and the reason for that is that the course content itself is quite dynamic and wide at the same time. A lot of staff here at South completed an A-level at different points. So by doing that at the same time, it allows you to kind of go into your teaching perspective. You can also look at kind of sports psychology. You can look at sports science. So there's lots of different avenues you can look into. And again, if you are interested about that, feel free to speak to some of your PE staff and they can kind of clarify those points for you. Hopefully that's a little bit of an understanding in regards to what our A-level here is at South. As I said, we are the OCR-based course. It is delivered by 2 staff. Okay, so you have 2 allocated staff across those time. We start by looking at whole paper areas, so you look at all of paper 1 between the 2 staff first. The reason for that is supports like deeper learning, and then we progress as we go on. Okay then, so the second course we offer here at South is a BTEC in sport. It's a level 3 based qualification, and it's slightly more vocational than kind of those that would prefer to sit those linear exams at the end of the 2 years. We recognise here at South that the BTEC sport is just as important. And that's really, really good to see. We have great numbers again now, BTEC of sport. And what's really, really key is that it caters for a different type of student. If you are someone that has a really keen interest in sport, but maybe not has a practical ability, then we would recommend that the BTEC sport is potentially more suited towards you. The same if you're someone that isn't fond of examinations and feels like it doesn't get the most out of you in that situation, but the BTEC sport is probably more suited towards you in that respect. The course itself then is 4 units delivered across the 2 years. We look at 2 and a 2 split. We have certain compulsory and certain mandatory units. If you look at the screen now, you'll kind of see that the 3 mandatory units are identified. So we look at anatomy and physiology, we look at fitness testing, we then look at the professional industry in sport, and we look at sports leadership as our optional based unit, simply because we do a lot of that here at South. So it's a chance for you to gain a bit of accreditation and pick up some supported marks with that. Within that course itself then, so you do have 2 external assessments. One is an exam. So Unit 1 is an examination-based area, delivered like you would do normally across all of the subjects. Unit 3 and Unit 4 are internal assessments. That's coursework-based units, okay? And we have a big push on here is making sure your internal assessment supports your end marks. As I said earlier, it's a more vocational-based subject, so it's a lot more independent study, a lot more coursework-based needed. So the personal learning skills we're looking at here are slightly different. If I'm honest with you, very, very suitable towards university because it gets you into the good habits that you need for when you are making those next steps, as well as that gives you a chance to kind of make use of your time and get involved in sport out in the community. And that's something we look at within our BTEC-based students. The course itself offers just as many career avenues, so it does offer ways into kind of like sports psychology, sports science, as well as teaching, as well as high amount of coaching as well. And if you talk to some of your PE staff, they'll be happy to kind of clarify their journeys into the way they've got into and some of the different opportunities that are out there. If there's any more information you need for either subject, feel free to get in touch with your PE staff or myself. I'm more than happy to clarify that for you. Hopefully that's been a bit informative to help you make your decisions.
Hi, I'm Naomi and I took A-level PE because it was one of the subjects that would allow me to apply for physiotherapy at university. I also took GCSE PE, so I had a vague idea of what the course would involve, and I was interested in learning more about anatomy and physiology of the body, and equally importantly, I loved the practical side. The course is delivered in line with accredited textbooks, which makes it easy to consolidate what you've learnt in class, as well as providing opportunities for further research and reading. The practical element provides a well-needed change from classroom learning, which will make up the majority of your other A-levels. I am now a second-year physiotherapy student, and my knowledge of anatomy, physiology, skill acquisition and training programmes from A-level PE has facilitated my learning at university to quite an extent.
So I've been asked to create a video about why I took A-level PE and kind of talk about why I enjoyed it and also why I've gone on to do further education in this field. I've taken a sport course at Birmingham University, and to be honest, that is plainly because I loved it in year 13. The whole course was fantastic for me. The teachers in particular, Mr. Law and Miss Taylor, I don't know if that will change, but they were fantastic for me. The kind of the extra mile that they took to ensure that we all succeeded. We had a particularly good cohort that year, and we did really well in it. So any extra questions that you do, if you don't particularly understand a topic, they would go over with you at lunchtime or after school. They'd ensure that you got the best out of your ability, really. Because the course isn't easy. It's something that does take hard work, and the teachers really were fantastic in ensuring that you got the content and you could apply it to practical situations or to exam questions.